There is a huge disconnect, isn't there, between the public opinion of our institutions and MPs compared to what the institutions and the MPs think about themselves and their institutions. I'm thinking, people at the BBC obviously think that the BBC is wonderful. We hear them talking all the time. The BBC is wonderful, and whereas people on the street, if you ask them, it's like night and day, isn't it? And what I wanted to ask you is, can you explain, first of all, can you explain why you're hopeful? I think you obviously already have. We touched on that by saying
I wouldn't be talking to you if I wasn't hopeful. There would be no point.
I am hopeful as well.
We've got to be.
If I wasn't hopeful, I wouldn't do this. I would just do something else, because what's the point if it was hopeless? But how do you think that journalism should be funded?
This is a really important point. This is the biggest problem. And what is journalism? Because journalism, let's be honest, had to exist in an era where somebody had to disseminate information of what was going on. Mm-hmm. Who's died in the village, who's been born, when's the schools closed, or I don't know, anything that was happening. We had to have newspapers, and then we had TV. So journalism, in a sense, is a massive crisis, because we don't really need it in the same way that we did. They're just there to interpret the situation of what's going around. But I do have hope. Because there are people like you out there, and I do think that we are the future, people like you and me, and we have to be supported. So I know people, there aren't many of us, who've left the mainstream media, mm-hmm. corporate old media, dinosaur media newsroom, and they've gone and said, I'm not happy. Tarek Haddy, you spoke to. But they've suddenly got no income, so we have to support these individuals. Yeah. So they have to get funding from the public to enable their work to continue. So the subscription-based service really works, or people getting donations. But you've got to be very careful then, and I'm sure this is an issue you might have, is that you will have supporters and you'll have an audience, and they'll only want certain types of stories.
Yeah.
And you've got to serve that. And what you may actually come across information that they don't like, and you might publish it. So if you're serving an audience, you've got to challenge them as well, and hopefully they're as open-minded as you, and they're open to this information that may come forward. So if you found out some horrific stuff about Julian Assange you didn't know about, that could lead you into a cognitive dissonance situation. Again, so we constantly have to challenge ourselves. We must always remain open-minded to all evidence that comes to us, even if it doesn't sound like something that we like.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I totally agree with you.
But we're all tempted to serve our audiences. And,
we are. I had a situation, I was highly critical of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party last year, and a lot of my listeners are left-leaning Labour Party supporters, socialists. And I had a situation where somebody, because I was extremely critical, I thought, I like Jeremy Corbyn. I voted for him twice, but I was highly critical of him, and I told somebody, people withdraw the patronage to me, and started asking other people, telling other people to withdraw their support for me as well.
I hate it.
It's like, guys, the reason I was having a go at Jeremy Corbyn was somebody you just mentioned there, Julian Assange, which I wanted to talk to you about next, because I felt like he hadn't stuck up for him enough.
It's very difficult as a journalist to not get involved and to be non-political, because as soon as you do, you can lose loads and loads of people. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of different issues like that, and I've picked up on that. I was invited to a Q event. Have you heard of QAnon?
QAnon, yeah.
And I looked
into
it.
Trust the plan.
Oh God,
Trust the plan.
And then everyone thought I was in the club because I just mentioned Q. All I did is, can you tell me a little bit more about Q? Oh, she's in the club, she's in the Q club, yay! And I'm like, I'm not in the Q club, I've looked into Q and it's not for me. No, I don't like the Q club. Oh, we hate her. Get rid of her. Can't we just all be kind of open-minded and have a discussion about these things? But anyway, moving on to Julian Assange.
Yeah, you've reminded me of something to come back to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about Julian Assange because today we found out that the Brazilian government are going after, Bolsonaro is going after Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept because he's been doing a lot of exposés on corruption in the Brazilian government. And Christian Ransom, I think his name is, the editor of WikiLeaks. I heard an interview with him this morning, and he was saying basically this is a carbon copy of what they're going after Julian Assange for. We're going to see more of this, aren't we, with the persecution of journalists?
Instead of celebrating good, fantastic investigative journalists and whistleblowers, them being imprisoned or even killed, which has happened, is beyond belief. All we can do, I guess, is get the right people in power to make sure that, you know, the tables are turned. I just hope, you know, that the old way of politics and the old way of media is going to die out, you know, with the generations above us. Because, you know, if you watch things like TikTok, have you ever looked at TikTok or, you know, YouTube, the young people, they're just fresh and open-minded and excited, and I just don't think they're going to put people like Boris Johnson in power, and I don't think they're going to put other, you know, political leaders in power who are propping up this old legacy, which is corrupt and dark, and it doesn't support and it doesn't invest time in investigative journalism, it doesn't celebrate whistleblowers, and it is, you know, I should probably be proud of, you know, my generation and the past, and I'm not. I'm looking forward to something very different, very fresh, something that's something that hopefully will allow the continuation of our society and our species, because I know we had a little chat about this in the car before the interview. I don't think we've got a long left.
No.
You know, we talk about the climate emergency, but, you know...
I read an article by Chris Hedges, the great Chris Hedges, just a few months ago, and there was a line in it that honestly made the blood just drain from my body. He said, "There will be mass death." And when you hear a line like that in the middle of an article about climate change from, let's face it, one of the best reporters the world has right now, it really did shook me to my core, because it was all of a sudden it was the realisation, oh shit, we really might not have much time left, and we've got to fight back against these lies and a narrative that is just not telling the truth, and this is why I think what you're doing is so important.
Well, I look back at our country, and I know we look at Julian Assange and the American government, but we look at, you know, the government that's been in charge in our country, and I look back at Edward Heath and obviously Margaret Thatcher and John Major and all of those different individuals who were in control of our country, and I feel very, very, very concerned that I just want that to end. I don't want those individuals, and I just don't think they'll get away with what they used to, because we now have an opportunity to all communicate with each other, but it's our responsibility to do so. But those people that I look back, you know, and how we all I watched Jimmy Savile every night, and I wrote to Jim will Fix It 4 times, and these people were our lives, and they were our role models, and we put them up there on a pedestal, and, you know, we had all this faith and trust, and they led us, and I just hope we get brand new, completely different role models into politics, into the media, people who are really, really fresh and not scared of that kind of professional shame and reputation, that just literally driven by truth, and protecting the vulnerable and justice, and get all those. I always say it's all about dark and light. Let's just shine light on all the darkness, get rid of the darkness, and all of those stories that have hidden for so long, you know, they will just go away, because there's a big light being shone on it all now. People can't hide and have these secrets anymore.
Anna, thanks so much for what you do. Please tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your courses, and your book as well. Plug your book.
Well, when's this going out? Can
this
you
is
tell me
going
when
out
this is being
probably
published?
tomorrow. It will probably go out tomorrow.
Well, I've got some courses coming up. For me, I am connected with so many people on social media, but I want to meet, you know, as soon as I met you, it's a completely different relationship, and you know, I hope we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing with my actual workshops that I run. So if anyone's listening, I've got 3 workshops coming up. The February one looks like it's pretty much full, but I've got a 2-day workshop in March, a 2-day workshop in April. It's only £95 for 2 days, and that includes food, everything. And I'm going to show people how they can film and edit with a mobile phone to a professional standard, how they can get great organic and paid share and get their stories out there, so they could be, you know, it really is open to anyone. And I just want to bring that kind of democracy to the media, where I'm creating more and more journalists. So if people could come on those workshops, the details are at breesmedia.co.uk/training. And it's BREES fishiger.co.uk/training. That's what I'd really like, is to meet people. I love meeting people, and I love sharing all my skills with them.
Well, it's been fantastic meeting you today. I'll leave all the links below in the description. Please go and check Anna out. Thanks for all you do, Anna.
And thanks for what you do. It was a pleasure to meet you, an honour.
Thank you.
Take care.